On today's episode, another keyboard repair? Man, I got to be careful or I'm going to be typecast. What's up, nerds? Unlike the Yamaha DX7 from the previous video, this keyboard is in much better shape, and it doesn't smell like a fire sale. This one here is a Roland D-50. I got this one about 25 years ago, and it's been well loved, well used, well played, and I just think now it's time to kind of refurbish it a little. It's got some issues. Most notably, there's a lot of dust in all these nooks and crannies. You know, I haven't really properly had this thing covered. And you'll notice this is kind of a aftermarket job here. When I got it, it was missing the little joystick handle. So I just kind of improvised with a piece of hardware I had at the time. Also, I replaced the LEDs. The low-powered red ones I thought weren't bright enough. And I thought bright green would kind of match the display here, but looking back on this, maybe a yellow or even a blue would be more of a, I don't know, a better match. Also, I don't think the Aftertouch has ever worked on this keyboard. It's a common failure with the Roland D-50, so we'll get into that. Also, these buttons, it's going to work fine for the video, but yeah, they're really hard to press down. Now, about 10 years ago, I replaced all the buttons under here. All the buttons over there on the keypad, all of these selector buttons, all of these, and I think I did these guys here. I'm not 100% sure, but based on the fact that they're really hard to activate, but tell me otherwise. These guys here, they just work fine. You know, and this thing sounds great. The Roland D-50, it's actually a great complement to the Yamaha DX7, where the Yamaha DX7 excels in bright and sounds that, you know, cutting lead sounds. The Roland has always, like every other Roland out there, they excel in pads, strings, ambient sounds. This is a great keyboard for that. And since I got the DX7 up and running, I thought I'd bring this guy up to speed so I could have them both together and see what we could make of this. Released in 1987, the Roland D-50 was a groundbreaking keyboard combining sampled waveforms and subtractive synthesis. Roland called this linear arithmetic synthesis, or LA synthesis, as they often referred to it. I guess they wanted to sound hip at the time. But it used a sampled attacks of instruments like brass, woodwinds, and percussion mixed with a synthesized sound to create a more realistic sound. Now, this was in the years when electronic memory was hyper expensive, and it was just more cost efficient to use a fraction of the memory for the parts of the sound that mattered the most. Then, as the price of memory dropped just a few years after it was released, full sampled waveforms were used in most of the new breed of synthesizers, often referred to as romplers. Keyboards like the Korg M1 and the Roland JV series were the ones that shaped the popular musical landscape of the 90s, and that pretty much killed the demand for any of the old school synthesizers. There were even stories going around about people scooping up premium keyboards like the Roland Jupiter 8 for just a few $100 or so, when now they'll fetch thousands of dollars. And that's how I got this one so cheap. When it was released, the only keyboard I had, and still have, was a Roland Alpha Juno 2. Now, it's a great analog digital hybrid synth, but it could never come close to the sounds that you could get from a D-50. And for about 5 years, those sounds were everywhere. From Enya to the score for Star Trek The Next Generation. Even though the factory sounds are dated and considered pretty cheesy by a lot of people, This keyboard is capable of so much more. Because it was relatively easier to program than the DX7, people have been and are still making incredible sounds for this, and there are tons of free sound banks out there. I found this guy at a pawn shop around 2000. It was leaning against a wall stacked behind several other keyboards. When I saw that D-50 logo, my heart started racing. They were asking $150, but I think I was able to talk them down to about $100. I do remember using the line, "Well, it doesn't have speakers on it," as my haggling leverage. Yeah, I couldn't believe it worked either, but here we are. Like I said earlier, I don't think the Aftertouch ever worked, and it needed some TLC, nothing major. But now that I've got it up on a bench, let's give this guy an overhaul. And because you have to open up the Roland from the bottom, I made this little thing out of a Walmart pool noodle, just cut in half. Kind of want to get it elevated because on top of the Roland, you've got the little joystick programmer thing and the pitch bend mod, whatever they call it down there. Yeah, so it's got to stay off the ground so you don't smash those little things. So $3 Walmart pool noodle, hey, it works. Unlike the DX7, which just has 5 screws to get in it, and they're all the same size, you've got to remove all of these guys here. Ignore the blue Sharpie on my finger, which may or may not be different sizes. So all of these have to come off, as well as these right here along the back panel, which are definitely smaller sizes, like that. That's why I recommend a little Harbor Freight magnetic screw dish, I guess. I have the joystick topper right there. About the only decent thing Harbor Freight sells that'll last more than, a couple of days. So there you go. Okay, the back is off, and getting in here, you can see it's a little dusty. It's a little cobweb action right there. This is where the Aftertouch plugs in. So I'm gonna have to find out how to measure that or clean it off. I also found a note I left in there. And it says, "This is Billy's keyboard. If you have it, it's stolen." So apparently I had planned to never sell this, and I really don't think I am ever going to sell this. If I ever do, I'll crack it open, hit that with some alcohol, and wipe it off. But you know what? I love this thing. It's not going anywhere. I've got the main board here with the ROMs and all. The key bed looks nice. Some really interesting shielding here on this wire bundle. And yeah, power supply. Everything looks good. There's no corrosion. Just some graffiti that some jackass put in there. I will probably do the battery mod because this, I don't know, is this removable? I don't know. If I can easily swap this out, if this is a trick to getting this little cross member off, I will do that. If not, out it goes, and in goes the same kind of deal we've done on the DX7. And the Aftertouch right there. And also, this board here is the one that is giving me the issue with the key presses. Like the Chase and the Portamento and the key transpose. So that one's going to come out so I can check these. Here's the back of them right here. And also, I think the main display board here, somewhere down here, is where the LEDs are that I want to change out. So we've got to take this main board out and then just dig down and keep removing layers. Definitely not as easy or serviceable as the DX7. But yeah, I can see these. I must have put these tie wraps on here. Went with a little blue color. I can tell it's not factory. So clean that up. Yeah, that's my handiwork right there. Oh, look, blue Sharpie again. Hello, blue Sharpie. So there it is. I'm going to start taking this guy apart. Big thanks to Past Billy for marking what screws needed to come out. Little blue Sharpie marks there. Red Sharpie marks for the tie wraps. So just about 4 or 5 screws hold this key bed in right there. Then we can take it out. Had to take out the main board, this little auxiliary board here. But other than that, a little dusting and all, it's still not too bad. And notice, where was it on the key bed? We have a date code, 87-4 Don't know what the T means, but logically I would think, April of 87. I don't know how far or, what time frame that puts it into the production run. The serial number down here, 774511. I don't know where that falls in the range. Did they start at zero? Did they start at 70,000? Who knows? I did notice this still has a little plastic film on top of this plate here. That's staying because that means it's mint. Speaking of that, this has a couple of dings and dents. It's not scratched. It's what guitarists call relict. And they pay good money to have their guitars look like they've been dragged behind a truck on a gravel road. So with that being said, when I get back to this, just shout out to Past Billy. Get this key bed out and figure out what's going on with the Aftertouch. It's plugged in here. You can just kind of pop this out. I'm sure there's a way to test it. Going to find out how. Watch some more YouTube videos. Figure out what's going on with that. Also, there are no less than 6 different screw sizes in here. Unlike the Yamaha DX7, which only had maybe 2 different ones. Yeah, these are just from the back plate. I laid them out kind of how they were oriented on the keyboard. Laid them out almost like they were, kind of stuck. For the key bed, I just put them in its own Ziploc bag to keep them separated. The ones that were holding in the main board and this auxiliary board, I just kind of put back into the, well, you can't see them here. I think they were on the key bed itself, that frame. I put those back in the corresponding holes so I wouldn't lose them. So, yeah, way to go, Roland. Why use one screw size when you can use like a dozen? Awesome. One other thing I didn't know when I gave this keyboard a rehabilitation 10 years ago is that the springs that retain these keys are slightly different sizes. The white keys, they're slightly shorter than the ones for black keys. So I'm going to have to go through and make sure they all match up. Once again, thanks, Roland. Another thing to remember is that there are these plastic strips that keep the keys in here. So if you want to take the keys out, you've got to remove these strips so the keys can move forward. And being Roland, there are different sizes. So, huzzah. I got all of the keys taken off and I labeled them, octave and note. Some of them, like the G's, for instance, they actually have a little stamp on it. Will it focus? There it is. But I think it's just the G's and the A's and one of the other ones. Just those are stamped. Because I guess of the spacing, some of the other ones are interchangeable, but I like to have them all labeled. And that way I can line them all up, clean each one off, and then they'll go back in a lot easier. The black keys, they're not custom molded to the octave. They're all the same size. So you just put that in a pile there and clean those off. And yeah, that's clean these off and these will be good to go. Wow, this key bed, it's going to need some serious cleaning. Also, there's a lot of surface rust on here. Going to need to clean that up. The good news is the contacts under these little felt strips, they're still good, nice and clean. I mean, the velocity sensitivity is still good all across the keyboard. But yeah, it's going to need a nice cleaning. Here's the strip for the Aftertouch. I'm going to have to hunt down a service manual and find out, if there's a good way to get this felt strip off, and then check to make sure this is all one piece. Oh, yeah, God, that is dirty, dirty, dirty. Here is the Aftertouch switch, or pad here. This felt layer needs to come off. It's just barely on there with some adhesive. And you got to be a little careful taking it off because you don't want to tear this or this part here. Okay, that's off there. Now, I found one guide online and they said to go over this piece of conductive strip with Brasso to remove oxidation. I mean, I can put a little meter right there, and I can test the strips for conductivity. I can get this to stay long enough. And that strip is good. And next one, and there, just towards the end. Yeah, so I'll test this one more time towards the end. Okay, so we know the strip is conductive and good. So they were recommending, like I said, brass to remove any oxidation on this, and then a light swipe of acetone on this to remove any kind of, I don't know, imperfections or crud or who knows. So we're going to try that right now. I might leave this going and just fast forward this in post. So enjoy the music. I wiped a bunch of it down. There's a lot of this. I hope it's not the graphite itself coming off of it. So I just went real light and just kind of wiped it off until the black didn't end up on this rag here. Make one more pass, and it's relatively clean as compared to some of these smudges here. So I think we got this. I hope it didn't lift any of this connective graphite or whatever this is made out of off. I mean, I can always test it with the meter. Let's see real quick. Top ribbon. That's good. Bottom ribbon. Okay, that's good. So we didn't wipe off any of this or disturb that. Next step is just to get a little thin coat of, not thin coat, but just a little bit of acetone and just kind of wipe this down with a different towel, because I don't know what you get when you mix Brasso and acetone together. I'm guessing it can't be good. I had some technical difficulties importing this video clip of me trying to clean the underside of this felt strip. I was able to kind of salvage this one frame of it, but what happened was when I started to wipe down the white strip with the acetone, I was doing it very lightly and noticing that it was lifting off or just removing that white overlay, I guess, that was on that felt strip, exposing like a black graphite underneath. It looked like the same material that the Aftertouch strips, the two of those, are made out of. So when I went to test it, and even though it looks ugly, it's conductive from end to end now, where it wasn't when it was just the white. So I don't know if it's going to be active all the time or not. We're going to find out. If it is, the good thing about the D-50 is that next to the volume slider, you have an Aftertouch slider to, increase, decrease the amount of Aftertouch or the sensitivity or whatever. Like I said, I don't think this has ever worked on this keyboard, so it's going to be new for me. If it becomes problematic or, causes some kind of issue, what I will do is just, unplug it from the board on the inside, and we just won't have it, because apparently the D-50 and a lot of the Rolands around that era with Aftertouch failed. They were just horrible, and they're known for going out, and that's just it. You can't do that anymore. If you have a MIDI instrument that is capable of Aftertouch and transmits Aftertouch through MIDI data, like the DX7 I think does. I know it has Aftertouch. We can MIDI that into the D50 and, control it with that, and we'll see what happens. So once again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. It looks like hell, but we're going to keep going. I went through and knocked down all the surface rust as much as I could anyway, then went over it with a little bit of vinegar to kind of stop the rusting process. Then when that dried off, cleaned it all up and then put a little clear coat on top of it to kind of seal it up. As you can see, I went through and did the Hobby Lobby tack weld with the glue gun right there, hot glue gun. So I think this key bed is ready to be reassembled. I'm going to clean the keys off before I assemble it though. But yeah, this should take care of the Aftertouch strip issue. If it doesn't, we'll go examine a little further. I let the keys soak in a bath of warm water and dishwashing detergent for about an hour. Then I went back and kind of got the hard to reach places with this little soft bristle toothbrush, especially like where the springs hold on to those old pegs. And the dishwashing detergent and warm water is not going to erase the Sharpie markings I put on there for the key designation, so I'll be able to tell those apart when I go to reassemble it. So I'm just going to let these air dry and then go back over them real quick with a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser just to get any of the residue off. And these should be good as okay. Got the key bed back together. Everything's nice, tight, secure, and shiny. Also, all the springs lined up magically, so we're good on that end. A little pro tip here: it's good to have a nice little pair of long needle nose pliers to kind of put the spring in and then attach it with this. Because if you don't, use your hands and you're not very, don't grip it just right, or the springs pinch you and you let go, this little spring will just rock it out and you'll never find it again. It'll just go into another dimension apparently. And I can't imagine that these are really easy to find, especially, I don't think even Centaur has these in stock anymore. You could double check, but yeah, they're becoming less and less common, and I don't think you can just go down to Lowe's or Home Depot and pick one of these up. So anyway, yeah, it looks good, all back together. I think the next thing we're going to work on is the buttons for like the portamento and the chase and that little cluster of buttons right there. I'm going to take that apart and see if it's the buttons, if I need to order some new ones, or it might just be something with the mounting of that board and it's just not, letting those buttons make contact very nicely. So that's up next. Well, I think I have an idea why these buttons are giving me trouble when I press down on them. It's these LEDs right here. They're 5mm LEDs, and look like they might be rubbing up on these little tabs right here. So what I'm going to do is order some 3mm LEDs, swap these out. Also going to change out the color on them too. The green is kind of cool, but the blue kind of matches like the logo, the D50 logo a little bit better. And down the line, if I want to swap out the display for like a backlit blue LED display or something like that, it'll look a lot better. Also, probably change out the LEDs in the main board too. I'm just noticing this is really crusty, the job I did. I have to go back and clean all this up too. So as long as I got it up on the rack, we're going to do that as well. So I'm going to put my order in and we'll see what happens. See if the post office loses these or decides to take the LEDs on a whirlwind trip around the country. So stay tuned for an update. Before and after. As you can see, these guys are a little smaller than the 5mm LEDs that I replaced, that were replacements for the originals. And after 15 years, I really can't remember what size the originals were. I mean, hell, these days I have a hard time remembering what I had for breakfast this morning. So there you go. But it looks good. And they're smaller, so that's that. Everything is back together, zip tied up, ready to go. And in the process of reassembling, I saw a few little cold solder joints that I needed to touch up. And also, I examined the battery holder. Roland has one up on the Yamaha D-50. You can actually just lift this tab up. And, well, I guess you have to take the whole board up a little bit, but the battery just slides out. I would have replaced it, but I used my last 2032 on a DX7, and this one's holding up just fine, and it's easy enough to get to. So with that being said, I'm going to button this guy up, and we're going to test fire it. Got the back on. Even found a screw to replace the missing one here. So she's all buttoned up and ready to go. Everything is back together and everything works 100% now. The Aftertouch and all these new LEDs I soldered in and the buttons on the side there. Give you a little close up here. Now the blue, it looks a lot wider than it is in person. On camera, it comes across almost light blue, but it's a nice dark rich blue. They're all functional. Over here, these buttons are now easily, I mean, you can press them in without any struggle. You don't have to press hard. Those tiny LEDs did make a difference. Chase, and if I key transpose and a key down there, they all come on. So it's a nice blue. And the more I look at it, the more I want to change this display out to OLED with the blue background, maybe something, because it works, but it just doesn't fit the color scheme of this. I really get why people are modding this with the blue. So that's all functional. And more importantly, the Aftertouch is completely functional. And I'm going to demonstrate that in a second. Okay, the way the Aftertouch works is when you hold down a chord or a note or anything and you give it additional pressure, you'll kick in a modulation effect. So I'll hold it down regularly and then I'll give it some pressure and you'll hear the modulation or the Aftertouch kick in. Now that's kind of extreme, so I kind of dial it down a little bit to where it's even then it's still kind of high. You just gotta almost catch it down to zero. I don't know if that's something in the parameters of the program or this thing's kind of wonky. I'm not too sure. But it seems to go down a little bit, you know, when you get towards the lower end, it kind of curbs it a little bit. So that's about it. And that'll do it for this video. Everything works. Maybe the next one I will place the display in this guy and the DX7. Make them nice and pretty and matching. But another keyboard revival. This one, albeit not as crusty and dirty as the other one. But I was able to fix these keys, which now, you know, press nice and decently. Everything is nice and clean. Got a lot of dirt out. Still has some wear on it. You know, like these graphics, and you know, I call that relic, little scratches here. You know, it looks like a well-played, well-loved keyboard. So that'll do it for this video, guys. And once again, I want to thank you all for sticking it out and watching these little boring videos. And yeah, just thank you very much. I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy.